Wealth Without Wall Street Tribe, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Rock and Brittany Sandretto, members of our Passive Income Mastermind. So glad to have you guys on today.
Glad to be here.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Well, this is going to be a fun interview because I think the person listening to you right now is wanting to get closer to what you have been accomplishing, right? Like, I think we're all in this journey to financial freedom, but knowing your story, it was important for Joey and I to say, hey, would you mind sharing it so that other business professionals, people who are building businesses, running families, can actually try to accomplish the same thing that you're accomplishing and doing it at such a high level. So the first thing I would like to start off with, before we get into background and other things, is tell me, I think we engaged maybe 2 years ago over lunch and then ultimately at an event out in Scottsdale. Brittany, what would you say the biggest 3 takeaways that you have from the last 2 years are?
Yeah, definitely. I think just having more clarity on where our money's going, having direction, and just being very intentional about what we're doing each year and make sure we're stewarding that well. So I think that would be my 3 takeaways.
What about for you, Rock?
Yeah, for me, I've learned so much, first of all, so it's hard to put them in just 3 little buckets. But I think number one would be being around people that think 10X. And you know, our circle has grown so much from people that are growing things and pushing us to excel and next steps and the coaching. And we've excelled so much, I feel like, just over these last 2 years, that if we were by ourselves trying to do it, our community just wasn't there to push us along, as well as our mastermind community and you guys and all of Wealth Without Wall Street, for sure.
What's the most important resource that you have? If you really thought about this deeply, I think you'd come to the same conclusion that Joey and I did. It's time. In our newest book, Wealth Without Wall Street, The 3 Steps to Financial Freedom Through Passive Income, we talk about how are we tracking that time? What is the thing that we can do to get more of that time back?
That's right. If you've ever been listening to our podcast and thought, man, it would be amazing if I could take all the things that you guys have learned over the last 10 years and just summarize them, put them in some way to easily digest them and take action, that's what this book is all about. You're not going to want to miss it. Go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/new book and get your copy today.
So let's kind of give some background. So you guys talk a little bit about your business and what were you doing financially? So both of you kind of mentioned, hey, now we have more clarity. Hey, now I feel like we're around a group that's supporting us better. So talk about before you had that, though, what were you doing and what is your business?
Okay, so yeah, before Rock was a coal miner, he did that for a while, and we really thought that's what he would do. He would retire being a coal miner. And then I've done hair since I was in high school. We finally took a leap of faith and opened our own hair salon, and Rock quit the coal mines to help me. And so we started that journey of owning our own business. And yeah, so time went on and we wanted a lot more. Like, we wanted to have, more freedom. We wanted to be able to teach our kids how to manage money. We wanted to save for when we get older. We just didn't know how to do all that. We didn't know, there were so many things that we didn't have clarity on. And we became part of the mastermind. It just, like, the first meeting we went to, we were like, this is it. Like, this is what we've been wanting. And now we know how. We have people that are going to walk with us and go on this journey with us and help us get to what we're wanting as a family. And so that was huge for us when we first went to the first mastermind. We were like, this is exactly what we want. So that would be, to me, is like whenever we had sat down and started looking at our monthly, what we needed to pay ourselves and getting that figured out, and then what we could save, and then where that money that we're saving, where that's going to go. And everything just made sense.
Rock, what about for you?
Yeah, I think going along with what she said, we had a business and we were doing well and we wanted this life, but it's almost like we weren't getting, you hear so much stuff online, right? I mean, you can, what you need to get into, real estate, buying businesses. So we had this capital and we really just didn't know what to do with it. And so once we learned the stewardship principle of stewarding our money before we got with Wealth Without Wall Street, it just kind of like fast laned us as soon as we, went out to Scottsdale 2 years ago of, oh, wow, this is what we can do with this, you know? And it was almost like I don't know, like a whole new chapter opened up, but it like pushed us forward like exponentially. It's kind of a weird thing to say, but it's like we might could be where we are now, but it might have taken, you know what I'm saying, 10 years versus 2 years, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like, it kind of just pushed us, excelled us so much faster. So yeah, that was the big thing for me on that aspect.
So Brittany, you could jump in here. What would you think was the major drivers? How did you get pushed to go faster than what you were being pushed before? Like, think through like some of those specific details, because I think that unlocks things for people listening.
Mm-hmm. Well, first was sitting down and like we've always been great at doing our budget, but to actually sit down and say, okay, this is how much we're going to pay ourselves, and then sitting down and doing that, and then knowing, okay, we have this much each year. And then you have your mastermind every other week that they're pushing you. So you're having to sit here with these, you know, your group, your community, and they're asking questions that's really making you think like, okay, well, why can't I do that? Okay, well, why do I think that way? And so having that follow-up every other week really holds you accountable as well, where it's not just you're going to this event, you know, twice a year. You also have your monthly, you know, bi-weekly, where you're meeting with your community. And then that's really, I think, it holds you accountable. And you have people that believe in you. And you have tons of other ideas that they're sharing with you what's worked for them. And so then you're like, okay, I could use that. So you're just adding all these things to your tool belt, and with people that have experience and have other ideas. And so I just think that we're not made to do this alone. Like, we're made to do this with other people. And I just think if you want to go far, like, go with people. And so to me, I think that's what helped us, was making sure that we sit down, we have our budget in line, and then we have this extra to like he said, what do we do with it? Like, what are our core values as a family? And that's a whole nother part of the mastermind. It's like just making sure your priorities are in line and making sure that, you know, yeah, you're making this money, but like, well, why, you know, and what's it about? And so I just love that our values aligned with Wealth Without Wall Street's values, and that helped us jump on board as well.
Rock, speak to some of the experiences that you've had in the mastermind and compare that to before you got connected, like the conversations and the ideas that were happening.
Yeah, so we had our business. We bought and sold, you know, a couple other businesses prior to Wealth Without Wall Street, and so I was wanting to get into real estate. I was like, hey, I want to buy a whole bunch of doors of real estate. And I don't think anything's wrong with real estate, which I'll get to in a second. So that's when we went to lunch. And so when I had lunch with you, and you were kind of like, well, what, you know, telling me about the investor DNA thing. And I was like, what in the world is this? And you're like, well, it kind of helps you like on the path of, you know, where you need to do investments. So like my thing was like, I was just listening to YouTube, and I was like, okay, real estate is what I need to do personally. And it works for a lot of people. I have a lot of friends that do real estate, but after doing the investor DNA in Scottsdale, it was like, okay, I need to stay out of real estate. So it saved me so much possible heartache of following the steps that Wealth Without Wall Street had laid out. It's like a perfect blueprint of let's get you going and get you started. And I'll add this too. When we went to, another big thing for us was the right next thing. It's like a for the people that don't know, it's like this check box, and it has like your, you know, all the way up to 100-year plan. It has the small things as far as like, do you have an accountant, all the way up, you know, to legacy planning and estate planning. And when I put all those dots down in Scottsdale, and I didn't know anybody in the mastermind, you know, I knew you from going to lunch with you, but, you know, we weren't friends, you know, close friends at that time. And I remember all our dots were at the very bottom. And I remember just talking to Brittany, being like, what in the, like, we've got to do some stuff. And then, you know, we joined right away, because there was no question after we went to that event, because it was everything that we wanted. We just didn't know how to get there. And so it was like, as soon as we left, there was no question of like, are we going to join? Are we going to, you know, pay the money? It was just like, this is what we have to do. And so it's been cool, because now all our dots on the bottom are now up at the top, you know. And I mean, there's still things we're working on, but I mean, they've moved 3 boxes up or more, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's the cool thing with me. I feel so much like, even our legacy planning, I've learned so much. I feel I guess, more at peace. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I know my kids are taken care of. I know our financial plan and what we have going, is laid out, so it's like it gives you a peace on that aspect as far as legacy planning as well, so yeah, everything, man. I've learned so much, and I tell everybody this, when I just talk to anybody, I'm just like, I owe so much. I'm not just trying to plug Wealth Without Wall Street, but we owe so much to what we've learned just being in the community, for sure.
Well, flattery will get you everywhere with us, by the way. Don't worry about that. I'm always grateful for that. But it's the effort, right? You guys have done the work. Talk a little bit about that, Brittany. Like, your mom, you run a really fantastic business. I mean, how many team members do you guys have right now in your businesses?
I think 48.
Right. Yeah, that's not small. That's a lot, right? Like for most people, they're managing themselves and one or two people. So you have a huge team, you have a huge family. What are some of those like lessons that you've learned as a business owner working as a couple, right? Like I think that's a unique thing that sometimes Joey and I get confused as a couple because of how much, we spend time with each other and we argue. But see, I see you guys don't ever argue. So talk a little bit about some of the lessons that you guys have other than you mentioned, business days at home and family stays, or business days at work and family stays at home. Yeah. What are some of those lessons as a business owner and business owner as a couple that you guys have learned that you could share?
First of all, prioritization, like we mentioned a couple times. Date nights were super important, making sure that we have date nights and quality time together. And then everybody has different personalities, right? So like I'm like a doer, like she's idea, so she comes up with these crazy ideas and then I'm the implementer. So I have to make it all work.
It's kind of like them.
Yeah, kind of like you guys. So like I have to make it all work as far as the financial, the play by play of what has to happen to make this happen. And so like we used to get in argument, and we kind of just figured this out this year, kind of really nailed it down. Is like she can dream up some good ideas so fast that it overwhelms me sometimes because I'm like trying to make this huge thing happen, and then she comes in and says, "Oh, we need to do this as well." So then it puts me in like a stress zone, because I'm like, well, I got to figure this out first before I can move on to the next thing. So that's like something recently we've learned. Is like she knows.
Well, you told me it held because he was, and I think Sharon said this, but it was like just write down those ideas, and then like eventually I'll bring them to him like at a better time. Maybe not in the middle of our project we're working on. So I've learned like, okay, maybe this isn't the best time. So I've been just writing my stuff down, like my ideas, and then I'll revisit that idea. Like, should I share this? Because sometimes I just want to get it off of my shoulders, I guess, and just hand it to somebody else. And he is amazing at putting feet to my dreams. So I'm learning to like not every idea that comes to my head because he thinks that he needs to implement it. So that's something that we're working on this year is I'm just writing down all of my ideas. And then if it's a really good idea and it keeps coming back around, I've got some, some strategy to it and some better clarity around it, then I'll bring it to him. So that's helped. And then I think too, like we've always said, like, if one of us didn't have like a good, like to have a piece about it, then like we're not doing it. And so, because there's been times where we've made some bad decisions and usually one of us didn't feel great about it. And so we've said that too. So we've been like, okay, you don't have a piece about it. Like, we'll just keep sitting on this and keep, praying about it. But that's been something that we've learned as well. Just making sure we're both in agreement.
There was nothing worse than walking into class when you're in school and the teacher saying, pop quiz day. Why? Because you were unprepared. Are you unprepared, though, for financial freedom?
Don't be. Find out how close you are by taking our 30-second quiz at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/quiz.
All right, Rock, I'm going to ask you this because Brittany just said, there's things that you guys had done that went against your investor DNA. Help us understand what some of those mistakes were. Why were they mistakes for you?
So the big thing is we're growing other companies right now and our passions in these other things. And so when we jumped into the Amazon, it was like this side thing that we kind of thought would just kind of go by itself, but we really didn't have the time necessarily to put into it to make it grow. Yeah. We're just so busy with other things that we're really passionate about. And so we just saw the dollar signs, it was like, oh, wow, this would be an easy kind of done anywhere, and that was our big mistake on that business for sure.
That's a great one to understand there, is that sometimes focusing on multiple things at one time is causing a problem, because I think for business owners, oftentimes our business is the most successful thing we have. How do you guys balance that, like investing in anything other than just your business?
I would say it's the industry. We know this industry really well. So if we can do our businesses that we're growing in the same industry, right? It's like on the same branch of a tree. We know we can do really well versus trying to go jump to another limb, pretty much.
Brittany, I want to come back to you. You have come with your kids multiple times to different events. I'd love to just be a fly on the wall of the conversations that you've had with them on the way to the events and then on the way of leaving them, right? Because you've traveled with them to places. So talk a little bit about that. I think from, a parent's perspective, I'm always curious as to what parents are telling their kids as they're going to these things. And then what was your expectations as to what would happen? And then also talk a little bit about the conversation that happened afterwards. Were those expectations met? What did that look like?
At first, it was like we had to just set the expectations low, because we wanted them to be like us and get it, and you want your kids to get it sooner so you just want so much more for them. And so that's what we wanted. And so at first it was a lot. It was a lot for them to take, but them being in community with other children that were there and hearing things differently, that's what we wanted. We were like, look, we want you to do things different than what the world's telling you to do. We don't want you to be like the world. And so it was great. The first time we went, though, they had a lot of questions afterwards, like asking just, what was the thing that Bryson asked? Like, what's a asset? Or there was just certain things that they would ask that we were like, oh, wow, there are some things that they're retaining. But yeah, even now, like our daughter, she's starting to be like, okay, I want to do some passive income things. And our son, we're hoping he'll take over the Amazon business. That's our goal. So maybe that will it'll turn into good. But I think it's definitely helped them to think differently. And we're like, if we can go ahead and get them, thinking that way, then like us when we were, older, like I think it's so much better that they can get ahead in life. And that's what we want for our children, right? Is we want them to be ahead than what we were at that age. So
for sure.
Rock, like how many of those conversations have you been in with your daughter? And like, tell us a little bit of like, how does that conversation go now as opposed to 3 years ago?
Yeah. So the coolest thing to me, or one of the coolest things about our community and the mastermind is, I can't remember who said it or at what event, but it was like when you're growing up in your family, there's two taboo subjects. It's sex and money, right? So like your parents never talked to you about those two things. And that's how it was growing up in my family. It was an amazing family. So those are the two big things we try to talk about with our kids, right? Just so we won't, for the sex side, we don't want the world to teach them what that is and what that means. And same thing with finances. We don't want them just to go with the status quo of what, people teach, and so every business deal we do, every investment that we're going to make, we talk to our kids about it. Not that and we try to let them kind of give some kind of feedback on it, right? But not that we would necessarily listen, or make a move, just from their thing, but just to kind of get their brains thinking and understanding what you can do with money and how money can really work for you versus just kind of like sitting in the bank and just, saving for retirement. So they're starting to grasp it. But yeah, before Wealth Without Wall Street, we never really mentioned anything about how much we make or what we do with our money or anything like that. It's all been after joining the community is where we really learned to have those conversations now with your kids, even the small ones, the 6 and 7 year old. We try to talk, in their terms, but we try to let them understand more money talks, So yeah, we've learned so much on just the family aspect.
Well, they say that the teacher learns more than the student, right? So I think a blessing within this is that we're forcing ourselves to learn more, right? Because we definitely want to teach our kids well. and we want to teach them the correct information. So it forces us to learn and to gain that insight. And kudos to you for having these conversations with them, making the terminology more common. I think that's so hard as parents is we struggle to have these conversations around topics like money or business because the terminology typically is just so foreign. Well, when are they going to learn it? Right? Like, we need to start teaching them and bringing them involved in those discussions. And then it will be common for your kids to sit in a business meeting, to potentially be around attorneys or accountants if you've been exposing them to those conversations. And I know that you guys have been around and have built your own passive income streams. So they'll just think that that's normal. I just build passive income streams, right? That's what we do. Well, thank you for having this conversation with us. I think, the cool part about this is just we're all learning, and you have such a unique story being a husband and wife team, having built an amazing business, but also going from kind of the traditional models to now exploring how do you build passive income in your lives. And also you shared that it's not perfect, right? There's things that doesn't go right all the time, but I'll let you in with this and just kind of, now that you've had 2 years, right? So if we were sitting here today and we would have not had the last 2 years, what in your life do you think is truly different?
Are you saying what would have been different if we didn't have the previous year?
Yeah. If I met you on the street today and said, "Hey, Rock, tell me what's happened over the last 2 years in your life," and you would have not ever explored the passive income strategies, getting involved in masterminds and things like that. Like, what do you think, like, for sure would have not happened over the last 2 years?
Yeah, I think legacy planning for sure would not have been done. Yeah, for sure, all that. We'd probably have a lot of money just, sitting somewhere. We'd have probably done a lot of maybe stock investings. I would have probably gotten to real estate and learned that I hated it. Yeah, so all that. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, everything. I would hate to be in that spot, honestly, because I feel so good where we are now. So it would depress me to think about what we would have missed out on if we didn't join, 2 years ago, for sure.
Brittany, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel so much at peace about our future. Not like we talked about, it's not perfect, but I just have a peace of mind about where we're headed, about what we're doing with our finances and making sure that we are managing them well. And I just have such more peace about that. So when we started doing that and we started making sure where that money was going, when we did when we sat down and did our budget thing that we did, what's that thing?
Automated budget.
Automated budget. Yeah. When we did all that, like, it was just a huge weight. That was something that it was so much, I don't know. It just gave me so much peace. So I would hate to still be living that way. That to me was it was just a huge weight off my shoulder of knowing all those things were, okay, we're going to pay us this and this goes here. It just, I don't know. It just gave me a peace of mind. And so that I would hate to be living like we were. I'm very thankful for these last 2 years.
Well, we're thankful for you, and thank you that you would come on and share this with us. If our community wanted to connect with you, we've built a page. It's what'swhatwallstreet.com/Sandretto. That means if you're in the Birmingham area and you want a fantastic hairdo or haircut, depending on, but also maybe an amazing conversation, we'll figure out things that we can put on that page so you guys can get connected. So anyway, thank you so much, Brittany and Rock, for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right, tribe. Thank you for listening. Hope you found value today. Maybe this is one of those topics you can bring a spouse to listen to with you. You can go back and have this conversation with your spouse and say, well, man, wouldn't it be nice if we were talking about these things together and on the same page, having that clarity and intentionality. Thank you for listening. Have an amazing day.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.